Greetings and welcome to House of R, a Ringerverse podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. I'm Mallory Rubin. She's coming home to herself, and tomorrow she's coming home to me because she's driving down to Los Angeles. It's Joanna Robinson.
Mallory Rubin, I cannot wait for our listeners to hear some of the things that are in store for them inside of this episode.
We're talking to Tony Gilroy today.
Tony Gilroy's here.
The whole pod is a Tony Gilroy interview. What an absolute fucking thrill.
And if you're going to ask, hey, did Mallory get emotional talking about a droid? She did. Hey, did Mallory get horny talking about Syril and Dedra? She did. It's all there waiting for you inside of this interview.
And, you know, similarly, if you're like, did Joanna ask about the Maya Pei Brigade? She did. So everybody was extremely themselves, basically. Yeah. But seriously, we had an incredible time talking to Tony, looking back at the entire Andor experience, not just the finale, all of it, the entire show, the entire second season, the series, what it has meant to Star Wars fans. Really wonderful to hear from him and chat about this beautiful show. And if you're like, boy, you guys did a Rogue One pod last week, now you're doing this, you can't stop talking about Andor, correct. Who knows what we will figure out next week? I don't know. Probably something.
Sure. We'll figure it out. Ranking Will's girlfriends. There's only two of them.
That we know of. That we know of. Here's what we do know for sure is coming on the programming front. We are, as mentioned, going to be in person together, Joanna, later this week. And our beloved pal, Rob Mahoney, will also be here. And so the three of us are getting together and we're doing a House of R draft together. We are doing one of our, I would say, least easy to explain and understand House of R draft rubrics, which is the build the best X movie. We've done it for Batman. We've done it for Spider-Man. It is just a really fun way to look at a larger
The social
franchise.
team hates to see us coming.
You know,
yeah.
Here we are. We will be doing this for Mission Impossible. Build the best Mission Impossible movie. And it is just a fun way on the heels of Final Reckoning to look back at all of the other movies.
Yeah. And well, you know, we'll have a chance to get our Final Reckoning thoughts on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait. We will have, as we previously teased, our seasonal hype meter, our summer hype meter is going to be coming next week. So that's something to look forward to as well. The Midnight Boys.
Pew, pew.
Pew, pew. Racist movies draft. That's coming in the middle of this week. It's going to be can't miss. Can't miss. Cannot wait for that. Joanna,
Mallory?
How can everybody follow along?
So thrilled and delighted you asked me. Listen, I would suggest you follow the pods wherever you enjoy doing that. Watch the pods. You can look at Tony Gilroy's incredible hair inside of this episode. He beamed in live from Lucasfilm in the Presidio, and the hair was looking incredible. He did a glasses change. I think it's worth checking out the video. If you want to see him doubled over with laughter at something that Mallory Rubin asked him, I really suggest you watch the video of this interview. So yeah, follow the pod. Why not do that? Follow us on social. That's a good idea. Something that you might want to do. And as always, you can email us, hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. We read one of your emails to Tony Gilroy, and he was like profoundly intrigued by it. I think it's safe to say. So y'all are the best. We love the bad babies. Thank you so much for all of your thoughts on Andor and other matters.
Here's the spoiler warning for today. Andor. If it ever happened in Andor, it might come up today.
Human history.
If it happened in Rogue One, if it happened in Star Wars, if it happened in the history of the world, it could come up today.
The French Revolution. Yeah.
You've been warned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we do it?
Should we get to our interview with Tony?
Let's do it.
Tony, thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to talk to you about genuinely one of our favorite shared experiences, which was watching and covering Andor together. Star Wars fans like to point to Force ghosts as a manifestation of the eternal, but there is, of course, another way to achieve immortality in Star Wars, and that is by writing something that Star Wars fans will be quoting to each other for the rest of their lives. Andor was full of these mesmerizing, memorable speeches. Luthen's speech to Lonnie, Marva's funeral holo, Nemec's manifesto, Mon's speech to the Senate, on and on the list goes, and obviously more indelible bursts of dialogue than we could possibly go through right now. It's ingrained. It's ingrained into how we think about and talk about Andor with each other. It's ingrained into how we think about Star Wars and life more broadly now. So what does it mean to you to know that you and your team have given shape to and found poetry in these ideas that people will now be sharing with each other for decades and decades to come, forever, like passing down these Andor quotes to each other, almost like a sort of inheritance?
It's on a scale of incoming affirmation that really takes time to absorb. I don't think that I don't think any of us on the show really are going to have any real perspective on how, we're very proud, and we're all just blown away by what we've been on the road now for 6 or 7 weeks, most of us, and watching what's been happening and just the response we've been getting. And I think it's still too close to really fully let in the sort of institutionalized, edifice that you're talking about. Pride, I guess, more than anything. I think you'd have to ask me in a year or two what I think about it. It's so much to take in. It really has been a lot to take in.
Above the language, another thing that we've loved about Andor is the world building. And, we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, the way in which you've taken something that Star Wars was known for, which is this idea of desert planet, jungle planet, and given us these very specific cultures of the Gorman or Aldani or, Mina Rao or Ferrix or whatever the case may be. And I'm curious, from your point of view as a world builder inside of this larger universe, what do you think is most important in establishing a distinct identity for a place, so we understand what is at risk if the Empire homogenizes the galaxy?
They have to be real. You have to believe in them. You have to want to go there yourself. It has to be, it's one of the most fun things. I didn't anticipate that when we started. In the first blush of coming on this and meeting Luke, and as we started building Ferrix, and, I drew my very first crude map of Ferrix, which I sent to Luke, which they have. And it's like, it's just a gas to like be an anthropologist in reverse, and I guess I've done a lot of traveling. I've traveled a lot around the world. The movies business has taken me a lot of places, and personally I've gone a lot of places. And if you're really curious, I guess, and you have your eyes up, it's so, the one thing I'll say that I think is really important that's it's so unusual about this project to come on a project like this is that the design is so completely integrated with the writing.
Mm-hmm.
It really is the figuring out the gloves on the wall in Ferrix, and figuring out the vibe in Niamos, or the what Luthen's shop, or any of the things we've done. They're all writing, and that's something that doesn't really usually happen on my job.
When we think of Niamos, we think of the Pizos and the Revnog,
Pizos, thank you. He just had a whole conversation. We want to know why ILM does not have a Pizos dispenser here.
It's a reasonable question. It's a reasonable question.
Yep. And, the greeny green ones.
The greeny green ones. It's become a recurring refrain for us on the pod. We love to mention the greeny green ones.
I found 3. We were asking about it. I could remember 3 spots. I'm not sure if there's more than 3 spots. Maybe you know more than I do. But there's where Wendy asks him about the greeny green ones.
Yeah.
There's him in the bodega where he's looking for them. Then the guys come into the store in Mina Rao, the general store, and ask if they have Pizos. That's it, right? It's those 3?
Yeah.
I think so.
Amid the space fields of rye and the little Trader Joe's there with the barrel of fresh product for the Pizos. Yeah,
I want my Pizos.
Looked wonderful. I'm curious to ask a semi-related question and stick with this idea of just the sense of place and this fully realized sense of place, and then how that forges a lasting bond. One of the things, Joe and I covered season 1 together, and of course have just covered season 2 together, and one of the things that we were just genuinely so struck by and so moved by was how Ferrix, Stone, and Sky became this refrain. And the way that Cassian and Will, when they would embrace, and Cassian would put his hand in the back of Will's neck to cradle him and ask him to stay and be safe and show him that he loved him, that was the thing that they would say to each other, the shorthand that encapsulated inside of it an entire history. And thinking about alliance building and forging and sustaining a rebellion, one of the things that is obviously required to do that is empathy, right? Empathy for other people and their plight, trying to establish some understanding into somebody else's culture and life that is actually different from yours. And so we're curious, how that idea, Ferrix, Stone, and Sky, something that is so specific to Cassian, to Will, to Bix, to Brazo, to Sweet B, who will be coming up many times today, our beloved B2 emo, how the idea of what was lost, right? This place that they aren't anymore, this place that they're no longer able to build a life together and share together. The thing that was lost is what allows them to forge the desire and the conviction to make sure somebody else doesn't lose that too.
Man, I mean, capital yes to all of that. That is, you are right at the hot center of the whole thing. In several pieces. I mean, empathy, yes. Empathy. I mean, I just did a whole long interview trying to explain why Hollywood is more progressive by nature, because there's nothing like pretending to be other people to make you realize that maybe you should look beyond your own momentary needs. The same interview, refracting back. And so I feel as if you're just doing a commentary on the piece I just did. There is no ideology expressed by the rebellion. There's no one ever says, this is what I want the galaxy to look like when we are done. Right. And, the common, I think what really is the overwhelming ideology that is expressed, and I think it covers for all of that, is community. And that is the destruction of community is what the empire is about. And it could be the community of your, it could be colonialism, it can be imperialism, it can be the destruction of Ferrix, it can be taking apart Morlana One, at the beginning, we're gonna absorb the corporate companies. It is all about what happens when community gets destroyed. And if you look, I've heard Diego and Adria on the press tour re-articulate again, when Cassian is talking to Clea, when he comes off, he gets out of the Maya Pei Brigade.
Joanna's favorite.
Happening at home? What's happening at home? Home. And particularly if you are Cassian, which makes him such a great messenger for this story, is that he has had all of his homes ripped away from him, right? All of it. And Stone and Sky, all those little things, we build the worlds. Luke and I build the worlds, and the writers come in and help out, and the actors inhabit, and then we go farther, and Michael Wilkinson gets involved, and we're dressing the places, and suddenly they're alive, and we're making languages and national anthems. But they're so alive and they're so real that I never thought after we wrote after the song for the Stone and Sky chanting in Ferrix, I never thought, oh my God, that'll be a thing that somebody says to each other later on when they're in exile. Right. But it's just the pieces are so vivid and they're so true that they take on a life of their own. And and I really think you hit it. I mean, it's these people just want their communities. They want to have that sense of belonging, and the Empire doesn't.
Right. The community inside of the show is a vast one because it is a large cast with a number of storylines in a number of different places. We're going to hit a few different character-centric questions before circling back to some bigger themes again. But wanted to actually start with the idea of like finding this calibration when you have this many people in the mix. Some of the characters who had a less central role in season 1, like Clea or Lonnie or even Hirt, our guy Hirt, really moved to the fore more actively in season 2. And then you have some characters like our beloved Perrin, for example, who have always been deployed judiciously, right, in moderation, and yet still add so much texture, not only to every scene that he's in, but to our ability to like understand what Mon Mothma's life is like, right? What is it like at home? What is it like out on the social scene and navigating how that entwines with the political imperatives, et cetera. So curious, like, how you managed that balance in a story with this many different compelling performers, compelling characters, compelling ideas. How often were the decisions about who to feature when and in what way driven by your enthusiasm or somebody on your team's enthusiasm for writing for a given performer? Like, for example, when every single Partagast line is the single most memorable thing that's ever happened in the history of television. How can you resist, right? How can you possibly resist giving him more? And how often was that dictated by the needs of the plot? Like, we have to explain how this information is getting to Luthen so that people have enough of a sense of understanding of how information is traveling? Or was it always just about balance?
It's really symbiotic. It's all of the above. And then I'll go back and I'll give one little example. But having a lot of characters who are really good and in motion means I don't have to hang out anywhere very too long. And if I need something, I have it. There it is. Oh, I got to move this story. I got to get back here. I got to do this. I got to do that. My God, I got this. I got that. I got this. It really, it's really like packing the trunk for a long trip. They're all there. And what do I need? What's in the trunk? The actors that we got, I mean, they're just so extraordinary. But I mean, also in a really specific way, like what's a really Wilmon, Mo, who plays Wilmon. He was really he was Salman Pak's son in the beginning, and we cast him, and he was good, and he looked like Salman, and fine, and he's the kid, and all right, and then okay, let's have him make a bomb, let's have him throw the bomb, and then when we did it, it's like, well, who's going to get on the truck at the end to get out of there, and it really put him there because I thought, oh my God, it's been so sad and so tragic and so much has happened. They definitely know the kid who threw the bomb, and whatever the retribution is going to be here, it's not going to be good. So let's put Wilmon on the truck, and he can get out, and he made it on the thing. I don't know at that point how far I'm going to go with him, and he was very good during the season, but we hadn't cut everything together. It hadn't all been cut together. Hadn't seen all the moments that really, like, wow, he's really good. And I talked to Mo on the long break, and talked to him, and talked to the directors who'd worked with him, and tried to find out, how much can I invest in this? Is he solid? Is he, what kind of person is he, and how good an actor can he be? And so we brought him back, but you're testing, a little bit, and I had to give him some sense of the responsibility that he was taking on. But there's a character that, and then think of all the things that he does for me in season 2. He's the surrogate shadow son. As Cassian leaves, he becomes Luthen. He really becomes the defender of Luthen. When all others have gone, he becomes my link to. He becomes a really great plot device for me to move the story along, but he's growing up on the show. So he's a character who's aging in the right direction. He's a player. He's got girlfriends everywhere he goes.
A blonde in every port. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a cool little thing. And and it turns out that Mo is a really, really good actor. Yeah. And so that same story that is happening all over the place with so many other characters. And so you want to take attendance. You don't want to leave anybody too far behind, and but you don't ever want to put anybody in because you didn't need him. It's yeah.
Wow, we got to watch him huff Rido. What a gift!
I know, what a treasure.
I know, man. I know.
Mallory got to say huffing Rido, her favorite thing to talk about. So,
were you happy that when you watched Rogue, were you happy to know what was in that tank now?
Oh, it's like
thrilled.
We can't stop talking about it. We, obviously you've joined our beloved colleagues and friend, Chris and Andy on the watch a couple times. And Joanna and I have a very vibrant group chat with Chris where we pretty much exclusively talk about Saw Gerrera huffing Rido.
And Rido.
Yeah. All we talk about.
Rido.
on the Rogue One front, something that was, like so many people, when we finished Andor, we went right into rewatching Rogue One for the 100th time, but through a different lens. And something that was so enjoyable, among many other things, was sort of tracking the power differential of Krennic, watching Krennic go from, the most powerful guy in the room with his finger on the top of Dedra's head to getting belittled by Tarkin, choked out by Vader, within the span of a couple days. And so, and this power yo-yoing is not just Krennic, it goes for a lot of different people. When are you the most powerful person in the room? And when are you on the back foot? And what is it about like fascism or the imperial rule that specifically courts something like that? And I was thinking about, we're always thinking about our guy Nemec and his manifesto and this idea of brittle authority or masking fear. And I was just wondering, what were you most interested in saying about that, maybe through someone like Krennic?
Well, I'm saying it directly through Syril and Dedra for sure, and then through Partagas ultimately. Fascism comes for the courts first, and then it comes for your property, and then it comes for your church, or it comes for your neighbor, and it comes for, it has a long list of appetites along the way. And in the end, it always comes for its early proponents, its early adopters, its employees, its middle management. Everybody gets eaten in the end. I finally watched Rogue a week ago with my wife. I finally put it on to see what would happen because I was nervous about it. I saw what you're talking about. I hadn't really thought, I hadn't planned on that development of watching him diminished and become a middle manager again. But it works because the idea is so articulated the rest of the way through. I mean, that's really everybody loses their parking space after a while,
Let's stick with Rogue One for a second here. I have a question that I concede in advance is inherently paradoxical because Rogue One obviously came first and thus gave us Andor, and so I will now ask you to engage in a thought experiment in which that was not the order in which that happened. If you were embarking upon Rogue One now, if you were approaching it now after Andor had concluded, how would you think about the mission of that film differently? Would you think about it differently? Would there be anything about Cassian's final act of service that you viewed in a new light or through a new lens? Would there be any themes that you had explored in Andor that you would want to center in a different way in Rogue One? And, are there any characters who you spent time with across 2 seasons of the series who you find yourself wishing could be there in the movie?
That question would give me a headache. I have to admit, I don't really want to talk about Rogue so very much. I was really pleased when I saw it. I was nervous to see it, but everyone kept telling me it was working and enhanced and everything. When I watched it, I was really pleased at how proper we were with the information. The information works perfectly. And I'm really pleased with how it tracks for Cassian and for, all the way through. Tonally, musically, visually, in certain ways, there's things that I see that you may not see. And there's also just a huge amount of construction that I can't escape seeing. So that question gives me a headache. I don't know what I would do. I'm pretty well pleased. The fact that Rogue works and works as well as it does right now is satisfaction enough for me.
It does. It's astonishing how well it works. Yeah. And it's astonishing how much Andor enhances what's already there, just deepens it. It's pretty.
Did you how heavily invested when you saw when there was only Rogue?
Mm-hmm.
How invested were you in Jyn and Cassian as the love that is the greatest love story ever told?
I don't think we're the world's number one Jyn and Cassian shippers, but I think it's been a really interesting journey to go on. We like all season, I was asking Mallory as we were watching the Bix and Cassian relationship develop, as we were watching them do beautiful Phyrexian hand gestures with each other. I was like, what does this make us feel about Jyn Erso? How are we feeling about Jyn? And I think where we landed on our Rogue One rewatch was this idea of, find solace where you can find solace in these really extreme times. And we don't see it as a betrayal of Bix necessarily, but it's just sort of, there's something there. But
it's very chaste, but it really is. I mean, who are you going to be with at the end of the world,
Yeah. We're like rewatching it and looking at the moment where they're staring into each other's eyes and circling each other, or sharing a very intimate ride down the elevator and thinking, you know what, if the love of your life partner said, we're not going to do this right now, you need to go focus on saving the galaxy. If you end up having sex with somebody in an elevator while saving the galaxy, that's really your prerogative. I think that was where we landed.
It's also Cassian, right? It's Cassian Andor.
It's quite Cassian. You mentioned, I want to circle back to this idea of everybody loses their parking space, because obviously at the end of one of the satisfying things at the end of Andor season 2 is watching the chickens come home to roost for some of these characters, watching this retribution show up for some of these characters. We, like you, really empathize with and feel for Syril Karn, and we feel like Who Are You is one of the most stunning things we've ever seen. But there's like a number of other endings, whether it's Partagaz taking matters into his own hands, Dedra in a cell, Hirt being used as a meat shield down the hallway. Like, do you think of it as sort of meting out punishment? Or how do you decide which character lands where? Who's going to wind up in jail? Who's going to pick up their blaster at the end of Andor season 2?
How? Well, at the end of season 1, I very specifically remember telling Luke, because we throw everything away. They're so storing things is not a great. I mean, I'm here at ILM where they have all this stuff they've saved, but boy, oh boy, when you try to find stuff that's been left behind, there's very few. So I said, save me a Narkina piece. I know I want to have that. Save me that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but save me that. I think it's most appropriate. It's what, I mean, it's not pin the tail on the donkey. I'm making decisions about what I think is the best, most poetic, most righteous. What's the one that feels the right? I think I got him right. I think she needs to end up there in a place where she's back in a box. She's, I grew up in an Imperial Kinder block. She's back in a ward of the state. I think that's a really round, for anybody who's really paying attention, that's a round story. The Partagaz listening to Nemec was a really happy morning to think of that. Yeah. When that came through, it's like, oh my God. Good. Really, really, to be able to put Nemec's speech in the conference room and not have it be a voice analyzer, but that moment, that was just too good to. That just you get a feeling when something drops. That's my feeling when something's natural. You get the right idea, it just drops. Here. He's just such an asshole. He's so hateful that seemed cool for him. Who else did you mention? Who else is there?
I think you hit the main ones.
Yeah, no. I mean, they just felt right. Yeah, it just felt right.
Let's hit the characters on the other side of the fight who are also supremely flawed. As both seasons of the show explore in such indelible fashion. Luthen and Saw. Luthen and Saw offer us two lenses into this idea, including very memorably, of course, in scenes with each other. In season 1, Luthen asks Saw, aren't you tired of fighting with people who agree with you? And Saw, Saw says later, I'm the only one with clarity of purpose, just iconic stuff from both of them. And it's just so interesting to track their arcs because, at the end of the day, neither could quite cease the former, and both ultimately felt the pull of the latter, right? And Luthen felt that he could not go to Yavin, despite Cassian begging him, and the place where Cassian, we will hear him like beautifully say to Clea, come see the place that you helped build. Yeah. And it is just impossible to leave the show, to leave the experience of watching the show without obviously toasting Luthen as this titan of the rebellion, a hero who, as he so memorably told Lonnie, like burned his life to make a sunrise that he knew he'd never see. But it's also, I think, impossible to leave the show without thinking about the other side of this alliance building and found family forging that we often, have the tendency to like cheer. It's a meaningful thing to us as fans to cheer when we're watching Star Wars. There was a time for Luthen and Saw, and then there wasn't.
Yeah.
Why did it feel so essential to not only include characters like this, and maybe we just focus on Luthen specifically here or anybody else you'd like to hit, but like in Luthen's case, to really build so much of not just your universe, but the moral calculus and assessment of your universe for us at home, for the other characters inside of the world around him, because it's now just so difficult for us to think about Andor or Star Wars or the very idea of sacrifice without thinking of him. He's so ingrained.
I mean, it's a classic dynamic. The originators, the original gangsters, the people who are light the flame, the people who do the startup in their garage, who come up with the big idea, the skill set and the energy and the drive that might get you there is not the one that has the strong follow through. And that's just, I mean, I don't know, Robespierre. What happens to him?
Right.
I mean, there are figures like this throughout every rebellion, every political movement, every organization, every business has the person who just, oh my God, well, Joel, he came up with the idea, but God, he just can't deal with him anymore. And so there's a classic aspect of it that you want to piggyback on. It's good drama. I know how Saw's going down.
Uh-huh.
I already know that from Rogue. So
right.
I know that he's not going to be included. I know that Luthen doesn't get to Yavin because he's not in Rogue. So he's and if he's going to go down, it's really so valuable for me to have Cassian have to examine his odyssey, his path that he's been on. And I love when he defends him in episode 12. I love when he kind of makes amends with him and kind of admits his affection and his need and as difficult as it was, I feel like they're really bound back up again. The scene, they're sneaky scenes. Their last scene together. On the flip side, the scene where Luthen is behind the Senate, and Luthen the pragmatist, Luthen the cold-blooded analyst, is a bit bedazzled by his circumstances. Why are you still alive? How were you always there when I needed you? And that little bit of pixie dust for Luthen, I just love that moment. And they get interrupted. They can't finish the conversation. It's a conversation that never finishes. But that's a real dynamic. It fits dramatically for what I want to do. It fits canonically with where they're going to end up. So it's kind of perfect for me.
You've invoked Robespierre, Reign of Terror, and you've so consistently talked about the fact that this is a show not just for our time, but for all time, right? That these are the cycles, the rebellions and the imperial encroachment is again and again a cycle of our human history, maybe just the human experience, maybe just the experience of living creatures in this world. And so I'm curious, I know that you weren't thinking too far ahead in terms of what comes next along the Star Wars timeline. But I think what's fascinating watching Mon Mothma, for example, inside of Andor, is this notion that she will ultimately by some definitions, fail as a leader, because under her leadership, the seeds are planted for the rise of the First Order. And so I'm wondering if you're thinking at all about this idea as we celebrate these victories, that they are temporary victories or temporary steps forward for a rebellion or an effort, and not a permanent quashing of imperial power. How do you think about these things as
I'm
cycles?
not playing forward.
Yeah.
It was very disorienting for me to step outside my 5-year period.
Sure.
If I went backwards and looked at stuff, if I went forward and looked at stuff, I started watching Mandalorian in the beginning, but then I couldn't watch it anymore because as cool as it was, I loved it, but I was like, I lost my frequency. So I didn't find it helpful to know what was going to happen after so much. So I thought if I get everybody where they need to get, that'll have to take care of itself. I was a little bit, I definitely siloed my period off to make it work as a defense mechanism, I suppose, as much as anything, because there was so much else to do anyway. It was like, yeah.
Well, let me ask you another sort of a show for our time question. One of my favorite emails that I think we've ever gotten from a listener in the many years of this show was about this. We think of it as a sort of relay race, baton passing nature of the idea of rebellions are built on hope. And our listener, who's the name I have is John, hopefully that's their real name, wrote this, which I think about all the time now. When the problems are this big, it feels like solutions have to be equally large. And so none of us are content to settle for reactions that feel too small. We crave big ideas because the threats are so overwhelming. However, I think this is where it is important to remember how the relay race of rebellion and resistance works. Even if our resistance is something as seemingly small as sharing hope with others, we have no idea what dividends it might pay down the road. And I guess I just wanted you to weigh in on this idea. Nemec once again comes through with us for us always. This idea of even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward. This idea of paralysis that comes when people are inside a fascist reign or imperial encroachment of like, what can I possibly do? And this idea of do something, do anything. What is the small thing that you can do? What is the community building that you can do? How much is that idea resonating with you around the story of Andor?
A lot. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, and what does he say at the campfire in Aldani? The pace of repression has become so fast. There's 40 atrocities happening, at once. How can we pay attention? I think that is that's a paralysis that people can get with. What just is really overwhelming is the comment that you read and those kinds of discussions, which seem to be happening everywhere. Every time I look online, so many people that we speak to, the eloquence, with which people have viewed the show and commented on it and thought about it and argued with each other about it is, you don't even dare fantasize that you'll have that kind of conversation start on a project that you're working on imaginatively. You just can't even imagine, I'm going to work on this thing. And then people, 1 million people are going to be talking about it amongst themselves. And not just that they liked it or didn't like it, or did you understand this? They're going to be talking about it they're going to be taking the ideas farther than the show itself ever took them. They're going to be using the ideas of the show as points of departure for their own, for their own conversations, for their own communities, for their own use. It's humbling. It is really humbling.
It's been such a cool thing for us to witness with our audience as well. And like that email that Joe just read was beautiful and really touched us when we talked about it the week that we received it. But it has been like a deluge all series long of, honestly, what we would consider like.
I see it. We all see it. All the we've been on the tour like 6-7 weeks now, and in various in various groups, all actors, and Stellan was with us for a while. We've everybody been out on the road, and so we're all and my brothers and everybody on the. We're all just we're all just every now and then looking down and looking at a comments page or looking at something that somebody's forwarded to us or something that somebody's said, and we're blown away. We're all blown away.
I think one of the things that we've loved about the community around the show and the discussion around it is you get these like dissertation worthy insights and reflections, and then also people really having fun with the material.
There are so many people that are so much smarter than I am commenting on the show. There are things that people are saying and writing and referencing that I'm like, oh my God, I could never get there. How do you do this? It makes you realize what your skill set is and that it's not universal. No, it makes you realize that this is the thing that you can do. But it's really, we really are, I don't want to be like a comment freak but it's way better than, I never minded test screenings. When you had a test screening, where you could take your show out and watch it with an audience, and you could vampire through the audience and feel what you felt. I always thought that was valuable. I like to see. Sometimes you can bring in just a couple people, and if there's just a stranger in the room, you'll watch it differently. I hated focus groups. I hated them because you'd sit down there at the front of the theater and there'd be the interlocutor and the interviewer, and there'd always be one or two people who just needed an audience and would say anything to fuck you up. And all of a sudden that would turn into a lynch mob or something. And it was all distorted. There is something of all the things that are wrong with social media. There is something from my point of view, from a creator point of view, when you get this large a sample. I mean, this is a huge sample. To be able to surf through that in some way and see the tendencies of it and see what's really going on, that has, I've changed my relationship with the audience, I think. In how I work, not in how, not in, so it's been remarkable.
It's fun to think of the show as like a version of Nemec's manifesto, right? The ideas get out into the world, and then what happens? Yeah. And just like watching or thinking of something like, the great moment where Luthen says to Dedra, like, the rebellion's not here anymore. It's flown away. Yeah. Like, it is bigger than anybody could possibly wrap their arms around, and that's just awesome. I think because of that, and for many other reasons, but people are very sad to see Andor end. It is simultaneously, I think, acknowledged as this precious, perfect thing. And also like, oh God, will we really never get more? And so we would be remiss if we did not ask you about another thing that the fans are all writing us about and talking about a lot online, which is the idea of a spinoff. Our listeners are particularly captivated by the idea of a Vel and Clea spinoff. This has been a big topic of conversation here at our show. You've been very clear in
Vel and Clea.
Vel and Clea hunt down Imperial remnants across the galaxy.
Yeah, it's
like Nazi hunters.
Yeah, Nazi hunters.
Yeah, there's a genuine passion for this idea. You've been very clear in other interviews that you've given a lot of your life over the past decade to these characters, and that this is it for now. So here is my best attempt to incept you into one day returning. Which characters will you have the hardest time not writing for again? Like, if this really is the end, who has the greatest grip on your mind and your soul and your heart, where you can say right now, this is it, but if you think about what it would be like to never return to them and their stories, it would hurt?
Well, Partagas is dead.
What about the earlier party days?
I mean, everyone loved writing for Anton Lesser. He was a very popular guy to write for because he just. I mean, it's a silly answer, but it's true. I mean, Edie is just it's just icon. Every time there was an Edie scene, it was like, I'm taking that. I always wanted to do, and I really was that. Someone asked me on a rope line that, what scene didn't you get to write that you wish? I said, I really want to write a scene where Edie went to Luthen's gallery. That was a scene I really wanted to write. But
oh my God.
I'm trying to. You got me. I'm trying to think. So Vel and
I can give you the pitch because it's
okay.
Quite
I got. I
can I add one more element to it?
Yeah, go for it.
Which is that Dedra Meero, because she's been sort of framed for the leaking of the Death Star plans, once the rebellion wins, is let out of prison and used as a sort of Hannibal Lecter-esque consultant on like how to track these people down. But she's using it. Again, this is one of our listeners' pitch.
You don't need me.
No,
You
our
don't
listener came up with
need
this,
me.
like
No,
using
you see this as,
using
no,
it as
this
to
is
wreak vengeance on her
launch
enemies.
1,000 ships. You don't need me. You're on your way. I don't know, man. I mean, seriously, it has been 10 years, and I mean, it wasn't 10 years continuous, but it was Rogue, and then I had a lot of trouble getting a couple other projects off, and then this happened. So it's really been 10 years. I haven't done much else in there, and I'd really like to direct again. I got a movie I'm trying to put together, and I mean, 26 hours of Star Wars is, you know, I mean, that's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of Star Wars.
Yeah. So, that's a hip idea. I'm sure Kathy will hear about that. That's a good one. Yeah. All right.
Allow me to bring down the tone of the room entirely and let you know that, like, we have a very cherished theory about how Cinta dispatched Kolma that we'd be more than happy to share with you. But I'm curious if you, the writers, had a specific end in mind for him. Like, what did Cinta do after Tay got into the speeder with her?
Oh, we never, I mean, it never had to be articulated. So we never, it's not the kind of show where you spend a lot of time doing something you don't
have to do,
need to do because you have homework all the time.
You have entire fields of ride to grow or whatever it is.
There's a lot of homework for everybody. So, I mean, it's Fredo. He's Fredo. So she took him out on the lake and he's Fredo. So it's Lake Tahoe. She took him out on the lake and bang. I don't know. I mean, it's, there's so many people who are like, I saw people were confused. Did she, I mean, we thought that was so obvious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. No. It's very obvious.
I'm not going to worry about the people that didn't get that.
It's very obvious. Like when if Cinta's there for you,
it's
trouble. It's trouble.
Yeah, it's not.
I will just say to you that we were enamored of the idea that Cinta fastened her seatbelt and Tay didn't, and she just flipped.
Oh, just rolled it.
Yeah, flipped the speeder. Yeah,
you know, it's a convertible for a reason. It seems to us.
I don't think any. Yeah, but that I'm going to go against it because I don't think anybody ever saw him again.
Oh,
well, how high did she drop him from? Because there's not much to see at a certain point.
How deep a ravine? You know,
I don't know. Yeah, you know, the Chandrillan, the Chandrillan flats are notorious. Exactly,
cliff sides and crevices everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that is Joanna's single biggest passion point, other than the Maya Pei Brigade, her genuine personal obsession.
I do love the Maya Pei Brigade.
She does. I'm going to go to one of my personal passions now, and it is, as previously mentioned, B2. I just genuinely can't express without sounding like a complete and total lunatic how much it meant to see him at the end. Like, I just was so glad that we got that.
He's so happy.
Yeah.
Zipping around playing with his friends. I broke down in tears. I was just freely weeping to get to see him again and know that he was having fun. And then, of course, we panned to Bix and the baby, and I'm just like, I'll never be okay again. Like, this is shattering. 2 questions about B. 1, did you guys ever consider reuniting B and Cassian, even if just for a quick moment and a quick farewell, because they never got to formally say goodbye to each other, which is very difficult, I think, for me and for anybody who has a pet at home and just is thinking about B as their dog or their cat, which I think is how a lot of people think about B.
No, he's a dog. He's a dog. I mean, I built it. I mean, I really had a lot. That was really early. I mean, I spent a lot of time on B. He's named after my son's dog. My son's dog is Bimo, is a corgi. So it was named after that. So it's I really worked hard on that we had so much time in the beginning to like waste time doing that. So I really got deeply involved in that.
He's the best.
I'm sure that when I started sketching season 2, I'm sure if there had been a way, probably on the table. I know I was fretting about leaving him behind. What's her name? Talia, who she stays with. It was really important to me. When we did that, I went and really reinforced. There's a moment where Brasso really leans down and says, "Oh, she's smarter than me and better than me, and she has your charger and she knows all your friends."
Yeah.
I really went in and laid it on thick in there because by that point I must have been worried that we weren't going to get back there. But it was on my mind. But there was no. it just wasn't in the cards. You wouldn't have a scene just to do that in a show like this. You just, to stop in and also, B2EMO maybe wouldn't be so great for him on Yavin. He's happy where he is. And if you went and visited, then you'd just be breaking his heart and reminding what he's missing again. I mean, dogs kind of forget sometimes what they're missing.
No.
It doesn't look like he's worrying. He's not
He's
fretting
having the
about
best
Cassian.
time, Mallory.
He's having a great. It's fun. It's
He's
funny that you
literally in a
mentioned
farm
Talia.
upstate. He's literally fine.
This is what Joanna kept telling me because I was
In a
just like
farm upstate. That's what parents tell their kids when they put the dog down, right? Yeah.
I was so upset, and Joanna kept saying to me like, Talia, it will be okay. She is prepared to give B a good home.
I feel
I'm going the other way though.
I feel like every second of her screen time in that episode,
It's about making sure B will be okay.
Making sure that that Talia is good people. That's it.
Not only did B not forget Cassian, here's my next question. Is it my headcanon now is that B is basically co-parenting with Bix, raising this child, and his role is, when we talk about what we pass down and the traditions that we share, he is the storyteller, that he is like weaning this child on tales of not just Cassian, but Marva, Brazo, Ferrix, like all of the people and the places that this little baby didn't get to know.
Boy, when Vel and Clea show up for some information,
that's right.
There's a tea party.
You know what, Tony? Thank you for writing fan fiction with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate that about you. You mentioned budgetary restrictions. We were, we'll forever mourn the K2SO episode that we never got.
Need it.
We're really missing that. But
it was really good, but I have to be honest, 8 and 9 would not have worked as well as they did. It would have been disruptive. It was brilliant on its own and was a really good idea at the time, but and I probably fought for it longer than I should have. But in the end, I really think we ended up with a better situation. I really do, honestly.
I mean, I outside of the expansion of 8 and 9, I'm always curious to hear showrunners talk about like necessity being the mother of invention, like what a budgetary restraint puts on them. So outside of your ability to expand the story into 8 and 9, were there other moments where you had to get creative that you're particularly proud of the end results?
Well, I mean, where does it work for you? Aldani, again, it was Dan Gilroy. Danny got burned. In Aldani was originally pre-COVID designed to be, it was about 10,000 people show up for that. The Aldanis all come up there. It was 10,000 people. So that meant that it's this huge festival and this huge chaotic sort of, Glastonbury kind of crazy thing, which meant that the gang themselves could be different and how they came through and the incursion to the safe and everything was completely different. When COVID happened, they're like, we'll give you 100 people. We'll give you, we can't get them up there. I mean, our COVID budget on season 1 was more than it cost to make Michael Clayton. Wow. So what happens? Oh my God, tears and recriminations and what are we going to do? And holy shit. And then you go, oh my God, you know what? It's the Lakota Sioux at the end of the line. It's the dead end. It's really actually much more bitter and horrible. Yeah. And it's like, then you write the speech for Behaz where he's like, they start off with like 500, 600, 1,000, and then they just get drunk on the way up. We give them booze and we do all this stuff and they dwindle out and they're just the dead enders. And it just becomes more sad and you end up with something far more effective than you had ever anticipated. Those kinds of things, there's many of them. And some of them are practical. I mean, I think the hospital set in episode 10 is epic. I think it's one of the best sets I've ever seen in my life. The sight lines of it, the geography of the hospital, that horseshoe thing with the glass, and you always know exactly where you are. It's just absolutely perfect. It's a genius solve. We were on fumes. That was like, you can have a hallway and a turn and a thing. That's all one unit that Luke is turning around. And the design of it was a problem solved to let us use it for every floor and multiple places. So it's really a very small piece of set. It's not it was a huge a huge anxiety. And it ends up being just perfect.
Stunning. Yeah.
We loved in the horseshoe design, the parallel to Narkina and the ability to like look across to a glass window, and just the way that like information registers or travels when you're in certain spaces is just like in a completely different context. Fascinating to think about.
It just means when the directors and the DPs show up on the scout, to try to line up what their shots are going to be and what they're going to do, they almost inevitably are led to great shots. There's like, it's not a set that you have to go fight against. The set is just like dying for like, oh my God, look at the shots that are in there that she's walking and you see them coming, and that is some really, really smart production design on a threadbare budget at that point.
Should that be the spinoff? The granny Clea stole and rolled around.
Granny scatting. Yeah.
She was exceptional.
Yeah, we loved
What's she up to now?
That was on the page. I never did I see that. I think that's during the strike that probably happened. I was like, really? Okay.
I mean,
I love the moment where they're on the elevator. No, it's an improv thing that they do.
Oh yeah, Star Wars music. You love to hear.
I know. I fought for that. I fought for.
Yeah.
There were people who did not want. I thought that was great.
Oh, it was good.
It was genuinely incredible. We loved it.
Did you catch the name of the? Did you translate the Orabesh on the name of the hospital?
I think we did at the time. Yeah. Well, what was it?
What was it?
I don't know her name, but she's a famous. Tom Bissell said, "Can I name it the Myra Sohn? What's it? What is it? I can't remember what her name is, but translate the Orabesh, and there's an Easter egg.
Love it.
Look at Tom.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it. I have a question about the lessons that other people can take from Andor, the lessons for people who are making their own Star Wars show, or really any show inside of like a larger IP universe. Sometimes worry that there might be a risk of people taking the wrong lesson from Andor, which is to say that they might say, I have to make Andor. Right? I have to try to make Andor because look how it resonated. Look how it animated the fandom. When, of course, one of the many reasons, but one of the reasons that Andor worked is because it was so specifically and utterly itself, right? There was a mission and a perspective and a purpose and a point of view. And the fact that Andor was its own thing is what allowed it to reach people. So what is your advice for other people who might be making Star Wars in the future, or again, any show where you're playing inside of an existing universe with a lot of prior canon and future canon certainly as well, for how to like find that balance of making something that does engage with and enrich this larger storytelling tapestry that people have such a deep connection to, while also finding a way to make the thing that is utterly your own.
Yeah, but bring your game. I think I wholeheartly agree. It's driven us crazy on the show. Every time the clickbait that people try to draw, controversy between us and the other shows, and it's just
the cartoons.
It just drives us nuts when we see it. We're like, what is this? By the same token, it would be really wrong to try to come in and I think to try to reproduce, slavishly reproduce. I think there might be some grammar that you could take to the show that you guys were talking about. I don't think that show wants to be very funny, maybe, and it's not. Maybe it might have a different visual grammar, but there has to be a hook. There has to be a reason that you want to bring your game there, and then within that, we never winked. Like. Maybe that's the thing that kept me most out of that. Maybe that's the thing that disoriented me the most from some traditional Star Wars is the Buck Rogers, the wink, the thing that was really that I don't know how to do that. That doesn't come out of my my mouth really well. And what am I saying? Yeah, let your freak flag fly and do what you do best, and don't kid it though. I think that's the one thing you can't. It has to be maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I don't want to give anybody advice on it. I want them to do something that really surprises me, and also I think people should pick situations. And there's how many billions of beings in that galaxy? How many corners of it have been unexplored? They are doing a lot of, there's some things that they're building that are really unusual, I think. And I think that lesson's being taken to heart.
Yeah, we love that. We talk a lot about that. The galaxy is so big. Let's explore.
Let's leave the Skywalkers for a
Go
second.
to the dry cleaner. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That sounds great with Clea and Vel because they have a lot of outfits.
Wait, go back to the travel agency. The travel agency.
Yeah, it's a great set.
Oh yeah,
that couple there. I got friends everywhere.
Yes, they had something interesting going in the back room for sure. Which does bring us to our next topic. You said let your freak flag fly, and we would like to go to Andor after dark for just one moment here, if you'll indulge us.
All right.
We'd like to ask you something very deep and profound about Syril Karn, our shared favorite, a character we just genuinely. I mean, we did 3 to 4 hour pods on Andor every week. We could not stop talking about Syril. We're obsessed with him. We're fascinated by him. We were riveted by his arc. I'm not going to ask you about any of that. Here's what we're going to ask you instead. In season 1, Syril told his mother that he knew she had been into his private box. Our question is, what was in the box? Here's the second question. Did Enza and Syril ever
Enza and Syril
weave twill together, if you know what we mean? And then finally...
that's interesting. I think, no. I mean, I don't think she'd ever... I think she knows exactly who he is all the time.
Oh, really?
I do think, however, that he's intrigued by all things Gorman. I think Gorman has so many things that appeal to him. The order, the tidiness, the structure of it, the clothes, the precision of it. You could watch him trend native as it goes along. So I think he has a crush on her a little bit. I do. I don't think anything has ever happened. No.
Well, perhaps that's because he was so actively engaged in turning off the lights with Dedra.
Her boyfriend's pretty solid. Too.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
stiff competition.
I would say so.
Did Syril and Dedra have a safe word? And if so, what was it?
Oh my God. You know what? There's a time of day where I have a beautifully quick answer for that. What is their safe word? Oh man, Partagas.
Good man.
I think it should be
Leo?
Partagas.
Yeah.
Leo.
Yeah. I can't save you, Leo. Great stuff.
Calibrate your enthusiasm.
Boy, Chris really pet that one out. That was a really smart get.
Yeah.
That line is
Loved.
really
big line. That's the only spinoff Chris wants is the Krennic Partagas.
The Leo
years.
Orson early days.
Yeah. Last but not least, I think this is the end of our time, and I just want to ask you a really, really important question, which is, did anyone survive the Maya Pei Brigade, and are they okay? And are they part of the rebellion? Or are they all toast in the jungle there?
I like to think that they pulled it together a little bit, and yeah.
I love those dummies. I'm a big fan of them. So,
That's my son and my my niece's husband. And I think there's some survivors. It's actually funny because we really, who can you get back to come back to should I bring Naya back to Yavin or bring somebody else back to Yavin?
Mm-hmm.
But it started, once we put Melshi back in there, once I knew that was happening, it started to feel like you were just going to be it was going to get a little...
The gang's all here sort of thing.
It was going to get a little cute.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, I like to think that there's 4 or 5 people that survived the Maya Pei Brigade. Yeah, let's say that.
I love it.
Pick your favorite 4.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony.
Wow, this has really been cool. This has been a whole day of unexpected, wild interviews. All right, this is really good.
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate it.
All right,
Yeah.
man. Viva la causa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Joe?
As far as I'm concerned, it's canon that Cinta rolled the car and Tay never seen again at the bottom of a Shundrolin ravine.
Also, as far as I'm concerned, you have an official green light to begin working on the Val Clea spinoff. So, what a productive chat.
Could the bad baby who emailed us, call my people? It sounds like Kathy will hear of this, so we look forward to that.
Great stuff. That was such a blast. I'm not ready to stop talking about Andor, but worst case, I'll see you next May for our new annual tradition.
Andor rewatch. Sounds great.
I can't wait. I can't fucking wait. All right. It's time for thank yous. Thank you to Tony Gilroy. for joining us today and also for making Andor.
And everyone at Lucasfilm for making sure all of that came off without a hitch. Really appreciate you guys.
And thank you to our crew here. We have with us today Carlos Chiraboga, John Richter, Arjuna Ramgopal, Jomi Adeniran.
John Richter, I just want to say, the podcast is over. You're probably gone at this point, but I just need you to know that there was sort of like a last minute tech scramble right before the Tony Gilroy interview. Yeah. And I saw John Richter running down the halls of Spotify like, someone transporting the plans to the Death Star running from Darth Vader at the end of Rogue One. It was a phenomenal feat, and he made it all work. So thank you to John. Thank you to everyone.
Podcasts are built on hope.